Welcome to the Body Science Podcast. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the really intense world of World Special Forces fitness. We've been looking into the core principles behind how these elite individuals train. And, well, what struck me right away is how differently they approach physical capability compared to, most of us.
Absolutely. For Special Forces, fitness isn't really about aesthetics or hitting PBs in the gym. It's defined almost entirely by the ability to perform these incredibly high-risk missions. We're talking extreme, unpredictable conditions where survival and completing the mission are, well, they're the only things that matter.
Right. So our mission here for this deep dive is to look beyond that sheer intensity, pull out the fundamental principles, and then figure out how those ideas might be safely applied to enhance your everyday physical capabilities, what we're calling your daily functionality. How can lessons from that world actually inform how you move and function day to day?
Okay, so diving straight in. When we talk SF fitness, the sources are really clear. It's not about muscle size, not about gym records. It's fundamentally about being able to perform, moving your body, moving external loads effectively, efficiently, when everything is absolutely on the line.
Exactly. It's purely centered on mission-oriented functionality. Think about the complex physical tasks involved. Things like moving fast over rough ground, carrying, really heavy gear for long periods, getting over obstacles, sometimes physical engagement. And the environment, it's always unpredictable, so that adaptability piece is huge. Fitness is just tied directly to task performance in critical situations. Yeah, you see the contrast immediately. Like, typical functional fitness might mimic lifting a box, maybe adding some weight. But SF functionality pushes that to an extreme purpose. It's about survival. It's about mission success.
And that's the crucial takeaway for you, the listener, recognizing your own daily missions. I mean, think about it. Handling energetic kids, lifting heavy groceries or luggage, just staying physically focused during a long workday, even simple things like climbing stairs easily. These all need functional capacity. But here's a really critical distinction that comes up. SF training, it operates under this assumption that failure is just not acceptable. It's literally life or death or mission failure. For most people, though, training goals are, well, different. Better health, stress relief, maybe getting stronger, personal growth. And in those civilian goals, hitting a wall, even failing in a workout sometimes, that's actually part of the process. It's how you learn and grow. This difference in stakes, it completely changes the training approach.
Which explains why the sources really hammer home the caution. You can absolutely learn from the principles, whole body movement, training for capability, sure, but you definitely should not try to adopt their specific goals or, importantly, the extreme pressure they operate under.
And that distinction helps clarify functional fitness itself. It's a popular term, right? But in the SF context we're seeing, it's way more intense, much more comprehensive, tied directly to these critical life or death tasks. So for you, the starting point really has to be defining what your specific daily functionality needs actually look like.
Okay, so let's move on to integrated movement. That's another core principle that really stood out. Why this heavy focus on complex multi-joint movements, using lots of muscle groups together instead of isolating them?
Well, simply because their training has to mirror what they actually do on missions. Examples like Rucking, basically marching long distances with heavy packs obstacle courses, carrying awkward, heavy objects while moving. These aren't isolated bicep curls, right? They are demanding whole-body tasks and specific methods they use, like bodyweight exercises, sandbag training. They're chosen deliberately. They inherently build balance, coordination, agility, and importantly, they teach the body how to transfer power efficiently across multiple joints working together. Programs like the SAS, Navy SEALs, they often feature these practical movements.
And you can immediately see the connection to your life. Your everyday actions, climbing stairs, lifting a bulky item, reaching overhead, they all require that kind of whole body coordination. So functional fitness, in our context, tries to mimic those real life movements to make you better at them.
Right. So inspired by this, exercises you could potentially explore, anti-stress, start at a very low intensity. Might include things like kettlebell swings, that dynamic hip hinge movement, or burpees, which combine a squat, push-up, and jump. Even variations of box jumps onto a low stable surface. They get multiple systems working together. But this brings up a really, really critical point from the sources. The quality of movement often matters more than just quantity, more reps, or more weight. Trying complex moves with bad form, that's a fast track to injury, and it actually makes the exercise less effective for preparing you for real life.
It reminds me of that SF principle, brilliant in the basics. You've got to master the fundamental movements first, before you even think about adding significant complexity or load.
Exactly. So the application for you is pay attention to how you move. Don't just chase numbers. Observe your own movement patterns in daily life and during exercise. Work on improving the quality. Because the underlying reason this works, the mechanism, is that training your body as a coordinated unit directly strengthens core stability. Your core is the foundation for all movement. It's key for power, efficiency, and crucially, injury prevention. That's a big reason why SF training includes things like rucking and obstacle courses. The core is constantly engaged under load, stabilizing the body.
Okay, so we have these principles. Whole body use, multi-joint moves, adapting to variability. How do we take these and, safely translate them to boost your daily functionality?
Well, the sources give some great practical examples, especially for beginners. They focus on movements that directly mimic daily life. Think squats that helps with sitting and standing. Push-up variations help you push things. Row variations help you pull things. Deadlift variations teach you to lift things off the ground safely. Even just walking with a light weight helps with carrying groceries or bags. These build everyday strength and coordination.
So a beginner-safe routine inspired by this could be really simple, like mastering bodyweight squats and lunges, maybe holding planks for core strength, and even just consciously practicing carrying light items like your shopping bags upstairs with good form.
Yes, and the absolute crucial rule for making progress safely is applying the principle of progressive overload. It sounds technical, but it just means gradually increasing the challenge over time, little by little. So if you can do 10 bodyweight squats easily, maybe next time aim for 12. Or try holding the bottom position for just a second longer. If you're walking with weight, maybe add just one slightly heavier item next trip. It's about small, steady increases in intensity or reps or how long you do it. And always listen to your body. Go slowly. Be safe. Keeping a simple log can actually be really helpful too, just to see your progress.
Right. It's finding that balance, isn't it? You need a stimulus that's a bit stronger than your normal daily life to actually improve. That's the overload. But jumping into too much too soon, adding sudden heavy loads, that's just inefficient and, frankly, the quickest way to get hurt. Gradual progression is absolutely key.
Yeah, and thinking about functional exercise this way reframes it. The sources suggest it's less a specific list of exercises and more of a philosophy. It's purpose-oriented movement training. For special forces, the purpose is crystal clear. Mission success, survival. For your training, the purpose can be defined by what helps you live a healthier, more capable, more efficient daily life, whatever that means for you.
And this is where it gets really personal. We'd encourage you, the listener, to think about your why. What's your fundamental reason for exercising? Having concrete goals, maybe it's lifting your grandchild without back pain, or being able to hike comfortably on vacation. That's key. It helps you pick and structure the functional exercises that are right for you.
And a really effective place to start, as some advisors suggest, is to look at the movements in your current life that feel, well, uncomfortable or where you feel limited. Focusing your functional training efforts there. That's often a more effective and sustainable path, particularly when you're just starting out.
Okay, now we absolutely have to shift gears slightly and talk about a very serious warning. This comes up repeatedly in the source material. The kind of high-intensity functional training you might see elite forces doing, flipping huge tires, climbing ropes rapidly, running long distances with incredibly heavy packs. It looks amazing, but it is extremely dangerous for the average person to just jump in and try to imitate without massive, proper preparation.
Absolutely. And this isn't just opinion. It's backed up by reports looking at injury rates in high-intensity military training, and also by expert warnings against that whole no pain, no gain myth. Pushing through sharp, sudden pain, that's usually your body screaming, stop, not push harder. It's a sign you're risking real injury.
Right. And the sources highlight some common, really dangerous mistakes people make when they see this stuff. For instance, trying to copy those super intense SF moves from movies or videos without being truly honest about your own current fitness level. It's like trying to run a marathon having only ever walked around the block. Or getting hooked by the term functional and only focusing on the flashy, complex stuff while completely neglecting the foundational basic movements. It's like building a fancy roof with no solid walls underneath.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And also just jumping straight into high-intensity or complex functional programs suddenly with zero gradual buildup.
And the consequences.
Yeah.
Often, they're pretty severe musculoskeletal injuries. We're talking sprains, strains, joint damage, persistent back problems. The critical advice is, if you feel sudden or sharp pain during any activity, stop immediately. That's your body's warning signal. Don't ignore it. The safe path, according to the sources, is either getting guidance from a qualified professional who really understands functional training principles, Or if you're going it alone, committing to starting at a very low intensity and just carefully, patiently increasing the difficulty very, very gradually over weeks and months.
And there's that media track too, right? What we usually see are the highlights, the most dramatic moments, the end results of SF training.
Exactly. What you don't see, what's hidden, is the enormous volume of foundational fitness work, the months, often years of gradual stages and a meticulous physical and mental preparation that had to happen long before those highlight reel moments were even possible.
So trying to leapfrog all that hidden rep and just copy the visible, impressive end result, that dramatically, sometimes dangerously, increases your risk of getting hurt.
And this really brings us back to the whole point of this deep dive, doesn't it? It underscores why understanding the context is so vital, why critically evaluating what you see, especially something as intense as SF training, is crucial. It's so much more than just cool visuals. It's a whole philosophy, a long-term process built on deep foundations.
So wrapping this part up, the core idea really seems to be extract the why and the how of their movement efficiency, understand the principles, but don't just blindly copy the what, especially at its most extreme.
Which leads to a final thought, perhaps something provocative for you to consider. Given that these elite forces define ultimate fitness by their ability to perform specific, extreme missions, how would you define ultimate fitness based purely on the unique demands and goals of your own daily life?
So life really throws stuff at you, right? Deadlines piling up, those difficult conversations, maybe you're pushing hard for a personal goal. It's really easy to feel like you're just reacting, maybe getting a bit overwhelmed.
Yeah, definitely. And that pressure, it can feel relentless.
Yeah.
But, what if some really effective ways to handle that pressure, to stay focused when things get chaotic, actually come from somewhere designed for like the absolute extreme edge of stress?
Exactly. That's what this deep dive is all about. We're exploring the kind of mental frameworks, the techniques used by elite forces, not because, we're all training for combat or anything, but because the principles they rely on under intense duress. They offer some, incredibly powerful tools for managing the stresses you face day to day.
And when you look at the environments these groups operate in, they are fundamentally unpredictable. Extreme stress, both physical and mental,
Yeah.
It's just the baseline. It's the norm.
Right. So, okay, what are those core mental qualities that just become absolutely vital in that situation?
Well, it really boils down to maintaining composure, doesn't it? Making super clear judgments under immense pressure.
And keeping that intense focus on the objective, even when everything else seems to be, falling apart.
Absolutely. And foundational to all of that is this principle they really hammer home called extreme ownership.
Extreme ownership.
And this isn't just like taking responsibility when you mess up. It means accepting full, total responsibility for all situations and outcomes connected to you or your mission. Period.
Whoa, hang on. All outcomes, even stuff that seems, totally outside your direct control. That sounds pretty intense.
It is intense.
How does that mindset actually help you manage stress, like the high-pressure work scenario or, say, a tense family argument?
Well, think about it. When you stop looking outside yourself for someone or something to blame, the boss, the market conditions, your partner, the traffic jam.
Yeah, we all do that sometimes.
Right. When you stop that and accept this kind of radical ownership, it forces you to look inward and also outward for solutions. Your energy shifts away from like frustration or blame and towards proactive problem solving.
Okay.
It helps you really zero in on the actual problem, not just get buried under all the emotional noise around it.
Okay, I think I get that. It redirects where you put your mental energy, but does that mean you're just, suppressing all the fear, the anxiety, the anger that naturally comes up, just kind of stuffing it down?
No, not at all. That's a really important point. The training absolutely does not advocate for suppression. It's about recognizing those emotions.
Okay.
Acknowledging, okay, I feel fear right now, or anxiety, or anger. Understanding precisely how those feelings might cloud your judgment or maybe push you towards an impulsive reaction.
And then?
And then consciously, deliberately, you adjust your behavior to stay focused on the goal, despite the feeling.
Right. So for you listening right now, maybe that's the takeaway. When that stress hits or that negative emotion washes over you, just pause for a second. Recognize it. Ask yourself, okay, how is this feeling potentially getting in the way of what I actually want to achieve here? And then make a conscious choice about your next step, your next action, regardless of the feeling itself. It's like you feel it, but you act strategically anyway.
Exactly. And working right alongside that self-control is that intense mission focus we mentioned.
Right, blocking out distractions.
Both internal and external distractions,
Yeah.
yeah. And just fully immersing yourself in the task at hand, that internal goal. Now, in elite training, how do they build that? It's through repetitive, high-intensity exposure, pushing limits until that focus almost becomes automatic.
Okay, so you listening are probably not, doing extreme environmental training, but the principle still holds. Think about things like deep work, that idea of intentionally setting aside time to focus intensely on one thing.
Yeah, no email, no notifications.
Yeah. Exactly, shutting out those distractions. That cultivates a very similar kind of focused immersion just in your regular life.
So moving beyond those core principles, there's also a specific toolkit of mental techniques. These are actively used in coaching connected to these fields, specifically designed to build that psychological strength.
Okay, let's get practical then. What are some of these go-to techniques? Where would someone even begin?
Well, a great starting point is goal setting. But not just, vague wishes. It's about setting goals that are really clear and genuinely challenging.
Okay.
Some sources mention something called the FITS principle, F-I-T-S. It stands for importance, timeliness, and simplicity. It's a way to frame goals that seems to really increase the probability of success.
Importance. That's interesting. Why twice?
Good question. It really emphasizes asking, does this goal truly matter to me? And then, does this goal truly matter to me? And then, does it matter in the bigger picture for the overall mission or objective? Double importance check. Then, timeliness, give it a deadline.
Yeah.
And simplicity, break it down into actionable, simple steps you can actually take.
Right. So for you listening, think about a goal you have right now. Is it crystal clear? Is it pushing you a bit? Does it have a firm deadline? And crucially, are the next steps simple enough that you could, do one today?
Exactly. That's the practical application.
Okay, goal setting. Makes sense. What else is in this mental toolkit?
Visualization. This one is huge.
Mentally rehearsing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's about vividly imagining yourself successfully completing a task or achieving a desired outcome. Closing your eyes and really running through the scenario in detail in your mind.
And does that actually work, or is it just wishful thinking?
Oh, it works. What's really fascinating is the research showing that mentally rehearsing success, when done vividly, actually stimulates some of the same brain regions that are involved when you actually perform the task.
Wow, really?
Yeah, so it builds a sense of familiarity. It definitely boosts confidence, and it essentially primes your mind and body to perform better when the real situation arrives.
So, okay, practical tip. Next time you've got a big presentation, maybe a job interview, or even just, a tough workout planned, take a few minutes beforehand. Visualize it going exactly how you want it to. See yourself nailing it.
Absolutely. It makes a difference. And complementing that visualization is positive self-talk.
Ah, that inner voice.
That internal dialogue we all have, exactly. The key is learning to make it work for you, not against you. It means consciously repeating encouraging phrases. I can handle this, or I'm prepared for this, especially when you hit a rough patch.
So it helps combat that negative spiral we can get into.
It really does. It actively pushes back against the self-doubt, the fear, and helps you maintain a more resourceful, positive mindset. And that mindset directly influences your actions.
Does it feel a bit forced at first?
Oh, it definitely can. It requires conscious effort, especially initially. But consistently practicing positive self-talk, particularly when you're facing something tough, it's like training your own internal coach to show up right when you need support.
Okay, but here's something really crucial about all these techniques, right? The goal setting, the visualization, the self-talk. They aren't like magic pills you take once.
No, definitely not. They demand consistent training. Think about it like building physical muscle. You don't just go to the gym one time and expect to be strong, right?
Right. You need repetition.
You need repetition, dedication. You might not see massive effects after trying it just once or twice. But with consistent practice, these things become internalized. They become habits you can actually rely on automatically when the pressure mounts.
And they work together too, don't they? They aren't just isolated tricks.
Absolutely. There's a real synergy. Your clear, challenging goals give you specific, compelling targets for your visualization exercises.
Okay, makes sense.
And then positive self-talk strengthens your belief that you can actually achieve those goals, which in turn makes your visualizations feel more vivid, more real, and more effective.
So it all links up.
It really does. Now, another key characteristic, maybe the defining characteristic of these intense training environments, and a vital principle for navigating life's hurdles, is resilience.
Resilience. Okay, what does that mean exactly in this context?
Well, at its heart, resilience is simply the ability to bounce back from difficulty, to overcome setbacks.
Mm,
But crucially, it's also about growing from that experience.
growing from it.
Yeah. Think about those intense selection processes, the ones with incredibly high failure rates. They are quite literally designed to test and build that capacity for resilience under conditions of extreme risk.
So failure isn't just possible, it's almost expected, part of the learning process.
Precisely. The critical mindset shift is not seeing failure as some kind of proof of personal inadequacy. Instead, it's about objectively analyzing why it happened, what went wrong, what lessons can I pull from this,
Okay.
and then how can those lessons be applied to the next attempt, the next challenge.
So it's like a cycle. You face a challenge, maybe you fail, you analyze why, and then you re-challenge, but smarter this time.
Exactly. That's the challenge failure analysis re-challenge loop. It's how you incrementally build your capacity to handle tougher and tougher situations. And some sources even talk about this concept of post-traumatic growth.
Post-traumatic growth.
Yeah, the idea that going through significant adversity, really tough times, can actually lead to becoming stronger, more capable, and maybe even discovering new possibilities you wouldn't have seen otherwise.
So resilience isn't about being unbreakable, like Teflon.
Not at all. It's about being able to get back up after you fall. And, importantly, getting up more wisely because you learned something fundamental from the fall about the situation or about yourself.
You know, it makes sense then that the people who ultimately succeed in these demanding fields aren't necessarily the ones who never failed.
Right. They're often the ones who just kept pushing, kept challenging themselves, and crucially, kept adapting their approach despite setbacks, sometimes repeated setbacks. It reflects a culture that really values that perseverance, that adaptability in the process itself, maybe even more than just the final outcome.
So for you listening, navigating your own challenges, maybe the shift is to actively reframe difficulties. Don't just see them as roadblocks. Try to see them as essential learning opportunities, chances for growth. Value that consistent effort, that progress, rather than getting trapped by the pursuit of perfection, which can be paralyzing.
Well said. And it's also important to remember, while building that individual resilience is absolutely key, it's rarely a purely solo journey. External support matters.
Like camaraderie, teamwork.
Exactly. That support system, that team dynamic, is vital. It's why so much elite training involves intense team-based scenarios alongside pushing individual limits. That network is crucial when you're really testing your boundaries.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Finally, let's maybe touch on something called stress inoculation training. SIT.
Yes, SIT. The principles behind it are used extensively in these contexts, and it provides a really powerful, structured framework for building coping skills.
Stress inoculation sounds kind of like getting a vaccine, but for stress.
That's exactly the analogy. It's about building up your psychological immunity, your coping capacity, by gradually exposing yourself to manageable doses of stress, usually in a controlled way. It typically happens in 3 stages.
Okay, stage 1.
Stage 1 is conceptual education. This is basically about understanding stress itself. How do you personally react to it physically, mentally? What's its impact on your performance? It's about really recognizing your own personal stress signature.
Knowing yourself under pressure. Okay, stage 2.
Skill acquisition. This is where you actively learn concrete coping techniques, things we've touched on, like focused breathing exercises, maybe progressive muscle relaxation, also systematic problem-solving approaches.
And things like positive self-talk, reframing negative thought.
Exactly. Those cognitive skills are a big part of it too, learning how to manage your internal state.
Got it. And stage 3.
Application. This is where you start putting those skills you've learned into practice. You start using them in real or sometimes simulated stress situations. The key is starting small.
Low-level stressors first.
Right. You apply the techniques to minor stressors first, build confidence, get the hang of it, and then gradually apply them to more intense situations as you build mastery.
So in elite training, that might look like, say, progressively increasing the intensity of drills or making them more unpredictable.
Exactly. Building that adaptation. Or it could be practicing critical procedures over and over until the correct response becomes almost automatic, even under extreme pressure. The goal is to make the unpredictable feel a bit more predictable, more controllable.
Which reduces that feeling of panic, right? And allows for a more effective response.
Precisely. So for you, applying SIT principles to manage everyday stress might look something like this. First, recognize. Become really aware of the specific things that trigger your stress and how your body and mind typically react. That's that conceptual piece.
Okay, step 1, awareness.
Step 2, learn skills. Actively practice things like deep breathing or maybe a short meditation when you're not stressed. Work out some simple problem-solving steps for common issues you face. Practice noticing and reframing that negative self-talk.
Build the toolkit before you need it.
Exactly. And then step 3, apply. Consciously use those skills when you encounter small, everyday stressors. You get stuck in traffic. Okay, use that breathing technique you practiced. Get an annoying email. Practice reframing your initial reaction.
Start small.
Start small, build confidence, and gradually you'll find you can apply these skills more effectively when bigger challenges come along.
Now, there's a really important caveat here, isn't there? Unlike elite forces training, you absolutely should not go out and intentionally create extreme stress situations for yourself in daily life.
Oh, absolutely not. That's critical. The goal here is not to mimic that extreme training. It's simply to learn healthy, effective ways to cope with the stress that naturally arises in your life. Don't go looking for extra trouble.
Right. Handle what life throws at you better.
Precisely. But the underlying principles of SIT, drawn from how people learn to cope in high-pressure environments, they offer a really structured, practical way to build genuine psychological coping skills. It goes beyond just, hoping for the best or telling yourself to think positive.
It gives you concrete actions. Okay, so as we wrap up, here's maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to consider.
Yeah.
How might consciously applying just one of these principles in the coming week make a difference? Maybe it's deciding to take extreme ownership of a particular challenge you're facing, or perhaps practicing visualization for a specific upcoming task, maybe analyzing a recent setback, looking purely for the growth lesson within it, or even just consciously applying one simple coping skill, like deep breathing, the next time you feel that small wave of daily stress. How might doing just one of those things shift your perspective and maybe even your capability the next time you feel the pressures on? All right, let's dive into something intense today. We're looking at those extreme training phases in elite military programs.
Yeah, the kind designed to push people right to their absolute edge.
Exactly, like the famous Hell Week in the U.S. Navy SEALs BUDS training. We want to unpack what this is all about, the purpose, the effects, the lessons, and maybe most importantly, the warnings.
Definitely. So when we talk about Hell Week or similar phases, the first thing that usually comes up is the sleep deprivation. It's extreme.
How extreme are we talking?
We're looking at typically 5 or 6 days straight with, almost no sleep, often less than 4 hours total across that entire period.
Less than 4 hours in nearly a week. That's
Yeah.
hard to even imagine.
It's meant to be debilitating, and that's layered on top of just relentless physical activity.
Right, it's not like they're just sitting around tired.
Not at all. It's constant high-intensity work, lots of team tasks, being cold and wet pretty much the whole time, carrying heavy gear like boats, tackling obstacle courses, all while completely exhausted.
Okay, so it's sustained, intense stress, both physical and mental.
Precisely.
So this isn't just about being tough for toughness' sake, is it? There has to be a specific reason, a goal behind putting people through something so brutal.
Absolutely. It's not arbitrary suffering. There are multiple layers here. One, key purpose is definitely to find out where someone's physical and mental limits actually are.
To push them until they break or almost break.
Or until they discover they don't break as easily as they thought. It reveals what you're capable of under genuine, extreme duress.
Okay, finding individual limits. What else?
A huge part is about teamwork under pressure. Can you collaborate? Can you lead or follow when everyone is just physically and mentally drained, cold, miserable? Can you still achieve the objective together? That's a massive focus.
So it's individual limits, but also unit cohesion under fire, metaphorically speaking.
Exactly. But maybe the most fundamental purpose, the one that really drives it, is selection.
Selection, filtering people out.
Yes. It's an incredibly effective, if harsh, filter. It identifies those few individuals who have just extraordinary mental resilience, that unbreakable willpower, and, crucially, the willingness to prioritize the team, to sacrifice for their buddies, even when they feel like they have absolutely nothing left.
So it's less about building those qualities from scratch and more about revealing who already has them at an exceptional level.
That's a critical distinction. This isn't about making average people strong. It's a final check for people who are already highly capable. They've passed tough screening, initial training. This is the ultimate test.
It's finding the elite among the elite.
Right, and the numbers show it. Something like 2 out of 3 trainees typically don't make it through this phase. That statistic alone tells you how much of a selection mechanism it is.
6 out of 3. Wow.
It really highlights that this is designed for a very specific group, already vetted and prepared to a high degree.
And that context is vital, isn't it? Because trying to copy this outside of that system...
Extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
Trying to mimic this without understanding it's for pre-selected, conditioned individuals and without the massive safety and medical support structures. You're exposing unprepared people to risks that can cause serious, lasting harm.
Okay, let's dig into why it's so dangerous. What actually happens to the body and mind under that kind of combined stress, severe sleep deprivation, plus extreme exertion?
Physiologically, it's a cascade of negative effects. Lack of sleep alone tanks your physical performance, aerobic capacity, strength, endurance, coordination, everything drops off.
And your thinking gets fuzzy too, right?
Definitely. Cognitively, you see slower reaction times, poor judgment, difficulty concentrating, just impaired mental function across the board.
So that's just from the sleep loss. Now add in the constant, intense exercise.
Right. That accelerates everything. Your body accumulates fatigue byproducts, like lactic acid, much faster. Stress hormones, especially cortisol, skyrocket. You get actual muscle damage, severe energy depletion. Your whole system is essentially in crisis mode, breaking down.
How does that translate psychologically? What's the internal experience?
It creates this immense psychological burden. Judgment gets really clouded. You can have wild mood swings, become hypersensitive to small things. It's a constant grinding test of willpower.
Just moment-to-moment survival.
Exactly. And they intentionally create situations like carrying that heavy boat for miles after days awake that force trainees to confront their own sense of vulnerability, their own perceived limits, and find a way to push through anyway.
Is that where mental techniques come in? Or the team?
Both. Yeah. Often there are pre-trained mental strategies, visualization, things like that. But critically, yes, the team. Encouragement, cooperation, just knowing others are suffering with you, that becomes vital.
It's interesting you keep coming back to the team, because it sounds like such an individual ordeal pushing your limits.
It is, but that's the paradox, isn't it? While it tests the individual to the absolute maximum, it simultaneously reveals just how indispensable the team is. There are moments where you genuinely feel you cannot go on alone. Physically, mentally, you're done. And in those moments, the presence, the support, sometimes the literal physical help from your teammates, that's what gets you through.
So even though you're suffering individually, you're almost always doing it together.
Pretty much. Most of the tasks are team-based. You're constantly in situations where you have to help a struggling teammate, or you have to accept help when you're the one faltering. The mission depends on it.
So the big lesson isn't just, I'm tougher than I thought, but also, we're stronger together.
Absolutely. Overcoming these extreme situations relies fundamentally on that team cohesion and mutual support, not just individual brilliance. And, there's a lesson there for everyday challenges, too. Tackling something tough with trusted partners often gives you more resilience, more stability, than trying to go it completely alone.
That makes a lot of sense. It brings us to that common takeaway you hear from people who've been through it. The limit isn't physical, it's mental. Or your mind gives up before your body does.
Yeah, that's a very frequent observation. And what it usually means is that people often stop, they quit, not because their body has literally reached its absolute physiological failure point, but because a psychological barrier went up. Doubt, negative thoughts, the feeling of being overwhelmed. That's what stops them.
And going through something like Hell Week proves that barrier can be pushed further than you thought.
Under those controlled, specific circumstances, yes. It helps people realize they have deeper reserves than they believed. And that realization can be powerful, giving them the confidence to tackle other big challenges in life later on.
Okay, that's a compelling idea that our perceived limits are often mental. But how can regular people, us, apply that safely? How do we expand our comfort zone without doing something dangerous?
That's the key question, safely. You can definitely build mental toughness in healthy ways. It often starts small. Maybe intentionally doing small things that are mildly uncomfortable, like getting up a bit earlier, doing a task you dislike first thing, pushing yourself to finish a workout when you feel like stopping early, but not dangerously so. It's about building tolerance for minor discomfort.
Kind of like exercising that resilience muscle.
Exactly. And then you can gradually challenge yourself with bigger things slightly outside your current reach, but still safe. Maybe training for a 10K if you usually run 5K, with a proper plan. Or learning a complex new skill. The process itself builds resilience, even if you stumble.
And remembering past successes helps too.
Definitely. Recalling times you overcame any challenge, big or small, boosts what psychologists call self-efficacy, that belief that I can do this. It reinforces your capability.
So these are practical, gradual steps.
Yes, and this is crucial. None of this should involve the extreme pain, risk, or deprivation of Special Forces training. The challenges need to be healthy, safe, and scale to where you are now. Pushing boundaries safely builds strength. Trying to emulate Hell Week does not.
Because that limit is in your mind idea can be misused, right? It could lead someone to ignore genuine physical danger signals.
Precisely. In that military context, there are experts, instructors, medics constantly watching, ready to intervene. They know the signs of dangerous fatigue versus controllable exhaustion. They manage the risk.
A safety net we don't have on our own.
Exactly. So for us, mental toughness can't mean ignoring severe pain, dizziness, chest pain, nausea, disorientation. Those are your body screaming, stop. Pushing through that isn't toughness, it's recklessness. The Special Forces battle with yourself happens within a system of external control. Without that system, it's just dangerous.
Which leads us straight to the really critical warning, the severe risks of trying to imitate this stuff.
And we really need to emphasize this. For anyone not selected, trained, conditioned, and medically supervised in that specific way, trying to mimic Hell Week-style training is incredibly dangerous. Full stop.
Why? What happens when you push an unprepared body that hard?
When you combine critical sleep loss, excessive exercise, maybe poor nutrition, the body sends major danger signals because systems are failing. You risk really severe health problems.
Like what specifically?
A big one is rhabdomyolysis at rhabdo. Your muscles break down so severely they release contents into your blood that can destroy your kidneys. It's potentially fatal.
That sounds terrifying.
It is. Then there's the risk of cardiac arrest from the extreme heart strain, severe dehydration, hypothermia from cold exposure, and because your immune system gets crushed, you're highly susceptible to serious infections.
And the mental toll.
Also severe. That level of prolonged stress can trigger depression, anxiety disorders, even PTSD-like symptoms. These aren't just theoretical risks. Safety incidents happen even in the structured military training, despite all precautions.
So it underscores that this is for hyper-selected people prepared over years under constant expert watch.
Absolutely. The general public must not try this without those essential conditions. It's just not safe.
So, to be absolutely clear, what are the big don'ts? What actions should people absolutely avoid if they're inspired by this idea of pushing limits?
Okay, based on the risks, don't suddenly jump into extremely prolonged or high-intensity exercise way beyond your current fitness without building up gradually and maybe checking with a doctor.
Right.
Definitely do not intentionally deprive yourself of sleep to extreme levels, especially for days, while forcing intense exercise.
Yeah.
That combination is particularly dangerous.
Okay.
Don't train alone in potentially hazardous environments, cold water, remote areas without proper safety gear, support, and an emergency plan.
And the big one about listening to your body.
Yes. Do not ignore clear physical danger signals, severe pain, dizziness, nausea, chest tightness, confusion trying to tough it out. That's your body's alarm system. Ignoring it can have catastrophic consequences.
It feels like there's often a gap between how this training is portrayed, say, in movies or online, and the reality of the risks and the specific context.
There definitely can be. Media often focuses on the drama, the success stories, the perceived superhuman aspects, which makes for good viewing, but it can easily gloss over the dangers, the selection process, the years of preparation.
And even challenge shows that seem to mimic it, they still have safety teams, right?
Usually, yes, if they're responsible. But even then, watching it can create a misleading impression for the average viewer about what's safe or achievable without that support.
So the danger is people imitating the surface level stuff without understanding the deep risk.
Exactly. Any content dealing with this needs to be really responsible, highlighting the dangers and the specific context. Reckless imitation isn't just bad for the individual's health, it can have wider negative impacts too.
Okay, so wrapping this up. The key takeaways seem to be this extreme training is primarily a highly specialized selection tool for the already elite.
Right. Not a general fitness program.
The physical and mental toll is immense, pushing human limits in a controlled, albeit brutal way.
Yes, profound effects.
Teamwork is absolutely critical, paradoxically revealed through extreme individual testing.
Vital. Can't succeed without it.
And while the insight that our limits might often be mental is powerful, applying that lesson requires extreme caution and safety. Direct imitation is incredibly dangerous.
That's the crucial warning. So it leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What does this intense focus on breaking and rebuilding limits within such a controlled, high-stakes environment really tell us about the boundaries we set for ourselves in everyday life? And perhaps more importantly, how do we learn to push our own boundaries safely, recognizing that true strength might lie not just in individual endurance, but also in knowing how and when to rely on the support of others?
What if I told you peak physical condition isn't always built in a state-of-the-art gym? Sometimes it's forged with less, much less.
It's a really interesting paradox, isn't it?
It is. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into the training philosophies of special forces, specifically how they approach fitness with, well, minimalism.
Right. And the goal here is to understand those core principles. See how you can actually use them yourself, wherever you happen to be, whatever kit you've got or don't got.
So why this minimalist approach? Is it just making do?
Well, it seems like it starts from pure necessity. Think about their operating environments. Totally unpredictable.
Right. No guarantee of a gym down the road.
Exactly. They could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Remote locations, tight urban spaces, constantly moving. Peak fitness isn't optional. It's essential.
Okay.
So that absolute need forces methods that rely heavily on what's always available your own body weight, or maybe some easily portable gear, like resistance bands, maybe suspension trainers.
So you're saying it's less a limitation and more a strategy.
Precisely. It's not just about coping. It's a deliberate choice. It forces creativity, adaptability, and training, which mirrors the adaptability they need on the job.
And that has lessons for us, for the listener.
Absolutely. Huge lessons. It shows that effective strength training isn't locked inside a gym. You can do it effectively at home, a park, even a tiny hotel room.
So it's not about the gear.
Not primarily. It's about understanding the principles of fitness, applying them with, ingenuity and grit. It's the mindset, the application, not the equipment pile.
That minimalist approach must reflect some deeper values then.
Oh, definitely. Two big ones jump out: situational adaptability and training sustainability.
Okay, unpack those.
Well, adaptability is obvious, being fit regardless of the situation. Sustainability means they can keep training consistently, which is vital given how unpredictable things can be. No fancy gym needed means fewer barriers to consistency.
That makes sense. If you can train anywhere, you're more likely to actually do it.
Exactly. And it links straight into another key idea you often hear: being brilliant in the basics.
Brilliant in the basics. I like that. What does it mean in this context?
It means mastering those fundamental movements. Things like push-ups, squats, pull-ups. These aren't just for beginners. They're the absolute bedrock. Everything else builds on that solid foundation.
So the real starting point is mastering your own body. Calisthenics.
That's the heart of it. Bodyweight exercises are central. We're talking the classics: push-ups, pull-ups, chin-ups, squats, lunges, planks, and, burpees.
Burpees. Everyone's favorite.
Hey, indeed. But these exercises, they use nothing but your own resistance to build strength, endurance, flexibility, balance. All crucial. No special gear required.
And they're not just random choices, are they? They hit specific things.
Absolutely targeted.
Take push-ups.
Great for chest, shoulders, triceps, your pushing muscles, plus massive core engagement. And you can tweak them easily, right? Wide grip, diamond grip.
Changes the focus.
Exactly. Then pull-ups or chin-ups, essential for your back, biceps, forearms, that whole pulling chain. Builds serious grip strength, too. Key for a strong back and arms.
And lower body.
Squats are king. Quads, hamstrings, glutes, the works. Improves balance, stability, and functionally. It's basically sitting and standing up, something we do constantly.
Lunges too.
Yep, similar muscles to squats. But the alternating leg action really challenges your balance and improves hip flexibility even more.
Okay, what about the core?
Plank is fundamental. Hits your entire core, abs, lower back, glutes. Super important for spinal stability, good posture.
And then burpees, the full package.
Pretty much. It combines the squat, the push-up, an explosive jump. It just hammers your strength, your muscular endurance, and your cardio all very quickly.
But form must be critical, especially if you're starting out.
Absolutely crucial. Don't try to bang out perfect reps on day one if you can't. Start modified. Knee push-ups, maybe squats using a chair for support, inverted rows if you have a low bar. Progress gradually.
Form over speed, form over reps.
Always. At bodyweight training, it's not just about raw strength. It develops incredible body control, self-awareness. Well, using just your body forces coordination, balance. It demands a higher level of proprioception, knowing where your body is in space compared to, say, using a machine that guides the movement.
Right, the machine provides stability. Here, you have to provide it.
Exactly. Think about something like a single-leg squat. That takes immense balance, alignment. It builds movement patterns that are efficient and resilient.
What about making it harder? Progressive overload without weights.
People often wonder about that,
Yeah.
but it's definitely doable. You can increase reps, add sets, cut down rest time, control the tempo, like going down slowly in a push-up or exploding up, or just move to harder variations of the exercises.
So once that bodyweight foundation is solid, you might introduce some simple tools.
That's often the next step. Minimal gear, but used very strategically. Things like kettlebells.
Those cannonball-looking things with handles.
That's them. And sandbags, literally heavy bags filled with shifting sand, even big tires sometimes. These aren't just stand-ins for dumbbells. Their unique properties build functional strength and power in ways standard equipment might not.
Unique how? What's different about a kettlebell?
The weight is off-center. It's not balanced like a dumbbell. This creates a different kind of dynamic. Exercises like kettlebell swings, snatches, cleans, the Turkish get-up, they demand full-body coordination, explosive hip power, core stability, and a really strong grip.
I see. It's not just lifting, it's controlling an awkward weight through space.
Precisely. And sandbags. Their whole deal is instability. The sand shifts constantly.
Like carrying something awkward in real life.
Exactly. It simulates carrying uneven loads, maybe even assisting someone injured. Lifting, carrying, throwing sandbags forces your entire body, especially your core, to constantly adjust and stabilize against that shifting weight.
That sounds incredibly effective, but maybe risky for newcomers.
That's a fair point. The instability adds challenge, so form is non-negotiable, especially with explosive movements like kettlebell swings or cleans.
So start light, focus on form.
Absolutely. Start very light. Master the movement pattern first. Get coaching if you can, especially for those dynamic lifts. Progress slowly. The risk of injury is real if you rush or use bad form with unstable objects.
What's the big payoff from training with that instability then?
It massively develops proprioception, that body awareness we talked about. The constant adjustments needed for kettlebells or sandbags really fire up your stabilizing muscles and demand fine-tuned balance control, much more so than stable weights.
And better proprioception means?
Better injury prevention, for one. Improved performance in almost any physical activity. And crucially, it builds that ability to control your body effectively in unpredictable situations. It's key for them, but valuable for anyone.
So using these tools isn't a fallback, it's a choice.
Often, yes, an intentional choice to build practical, adaptable, real-world capability. It's about function over just aesthetics or pure numbers.
Okay, so we have the philosophy, the bodyweight base, the minimal gear. How do you put it all together? Structure a workout.
Circuit training is a really common and effective method here.
Doing exercises back-to-back with little rest.
That's the one. It's efficient. Hits your cardio and muscular endurance hard and fast. In special forces contexts, circuits often combine different types of challenges to build that ability to perform multiple tasks even when you're tired.
So how could you, as a beginner, design a safe bodyweight circuit based on this?
Keep it simple and focus on safety first. Number 1, exercise selection. Stick to basics, push-ups, squats, lunges, plank, maybe jumping jacks or burpees if you're ready.
Yeah.
Aim for full body, varied movements. Number 2, exercise order. Try to alternate muscle groups. Upper body, then lower body, then core, for example. This stops one area getting completely fried too early, lets you keep going longer.
Makes sense. Manage fatigue.
Right. Number 3, time reps and rest. For beginners, timed intervals often work well. Maybe 30 seconds of work, then 30 to 60 seconds of rest. Start with more rest, then gradually shorten it or lengthen the work time as you get fitter.
And how many times through?
That's number 4, sets. Start realistically, maybe just 1 or 2 full rounds of the circuit, build up to 3 or more over time.
And form, still the top priority.
Absolutely. Paramount. Correct form is always more important than speed or reps. It ensures safety and effectiveness. Also, always warm up properly before dynamic stretches, light cardio. And cool down after static stretches, maybe a light walk.
And listen to your body.
Non-negotiable. Stop immediately if you feel sharp pain anywhere. Pushing through that kind of pain is asking for trouble.
Could you give us a concrete example, a simple beginner circuit?
Sure. A basic one might look like this. Start with squats, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds rest.
Okay.
Then push-ups, maybe on your knees if needed, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds rest.
Got it.
Then lunges, alternating legs,
Yeah.
30 seconds on, 30 seconds rest.
Right.
Then hold a plank, 30 seconds hold, 30 seconds rest.
Core work.
Yep. And finish the round with something like jumping jacks or even jogging in place. 30 seconds on, then take a longer rest, say 60 seconds.
And that's one round.
That's one round, one set. Then you'd repeat that whole sequence maybe 1 to 3 times total, depending on your fitness level.
That feels manageable, but being honest about where you're starting from seems key.
Crucial. Don't try to emulate elite-level workouts you see online. Assess your own current fitness honestly. Adjust the workouts times, the number of sets, focus on safe, steady progress, build the habit.
Are there mental benefits to this kind of circuit training too? Beyond just the physical toughness?
Definitely. You're switching exercises quickly, engaging different muscle groups. It forces your brain to shift focus rapidly.
Task switching.
Exactly. It builds that ability to switch tasks efficiently and maintain performance even under fatigue or stress. That's highly valued in unpredictable situations, obviously.
But useful for anyone, really.
Absolutely. It fights boredom, gives you an efficient full-body workout, and trains your mind to stay focused and react.
That link between the physical and mental training is fascinating.
It really highlights the holistic nature of this approach. But again, that caution for beginners. Don't get caught up in competing or pushing too hard too soon with circuits. Listen to your body. Prioritize form. Progress gradually.
So maybe the real takeaway, the provocative thought here, is that true strength isn't just about having the best tools. It's about your ability to adapt, to be effective, to find strength within yourself and your surroundings.
Yeah, being resourceful.
Being brilliant in the basics, like you said, anywhere, anytime. Ever wonder what it really takes, physically, mentally, just to get your foot in the door for something like Special Forces training? Or maybe how those legendary, almost mythical military workouts came about? Well, that's what we're diving into today. We're exploring the demanding standards, the iconic physical tests, focusing on groups like the Navy SEALs.
Yeah, there's some really fascinating stuff here when you dig into it.
We're looking at foundational tests, like the Navy SEAL physical screening test, the PST, and also one you might have heard of, the Murph challenge.
Right, two very different but equally telling benchmarks.
So this deep dive, it's about unpacking the details. What exactly are these tests? Why are they structured that way?
And importantly, how the thinking behind them might actually be relevant for your own fitness, even if, SEAL training isn't exactly on your agenda.
Exactly. It's about the principles. So let's start with that first hurdle for anyone thinking about becoming a Navy SEAL. The PST, the physical screening test.
Okay, the PST. Yeah, this is crucial. It's essentially the gatekeeper.
The first filter.
Precisely. It's designed to give the trainers a baseline read. Do you have the fundamental physical tools and maybe even a hint of the mental grit needed for what comes next, which is BUDS training.
Basic underwater demolition SEAL training. Notoriously tough.
Extremely tough. So the PST is checking if you have the basic capacity to even start that journey. It's not the end goal. It's the starting line assessment.
Okay, so what does this assessment actually involve? What are they testing?
It's a 5-part sequence designed for versatility. It kicks off in the water.
Makes sense for SEALs.
Absolutely. It's a 500-yard swim. Usually candidates use the side stroke or the combat swimmer stroke, and there's a time limit.
So it's not just about not drowning?
Yeah, no. It's testing your comfort and efficiency in the water, sure, but also your full body endurance. How well can you move through water when you're already fatigued? That's critical.
Okay, 500 yards. Then what? Back on dry land?
Yep. Then you move into tests of muscular strength and endurance. First up, max push-ups in 2 minutes.
Standard stuff, but max reps in 2 minutes sounds grueling.
It is. It assesses upper body pushing power, core stability, especially when you start to fatigue. Then, immediately after, it's max sit-ups in 2 minutes.
Focusing on the core.
Right. Core endurance, primarily abdominals. After that, pull-ups, max reps, strict form.
No time limit on those.
No time limit, but the form has to be good. No kipping. This is a big one. It shows relative upper body pulling strength, grip strength. Think climbing ladders, ropes, obstacles.
Essential skills.
And the last part.
The final piece is a timed 1.5-mile run, usually on a track or a set course. This covers your basic cardio fitness, your ability to move on land efficiently.
So swim, push, core, pull, run. It really covers a lot of bases.
Exactly. It's deliberately broad.
Now, you mentioned standards. The material we looked at differentiates between minimum standards and competitive scores. Talk about that difference.
Oh, it's a huge difference. Minimums are just the absolute floor. Meeting them just means you won't be immediately disqualified on physical grounds. It's the bare minimum to even be considered.
So just scraping by isn't the goal. Not at all. The competitive scores hitting those higher numbers, that's what really signals a stronger potential for success. The guidance is pretty clear. Arriving with competitive scores puts you in a much more favorable position to successfully complete the training.
So it's not just can you do it, it's how well can you do it. And that suggests something more than just physical talent.
Absolutely. Hitting competitive scores isn't just about being gifted. It strongly suggests a candidate has put in the work, shown dedication, discipline, before they even show up for day one of BUDS.
It's an indicator of mental readiness, too.
Yes, there's a great point made that physically gifted individuals do not automatically make it through the program. They must demonstrate mental fortitude and perseverance to succeed. The PST, especially achieving competitive scores, offers a glimpse into that mental fortitude. How hard did you prepare? How disciplined are you?
So the physical test acts as a proxy for certain mental attributes needed later.
In a way, yes. It filters for physical capacity, but it also hints at the drive required for the immense mental challenges ahead.
And the variety in the test itself, swim, run, push, pull, that speaks to the job, right?
Definitely. Special Forces operations demand versatility. You might be swimming 1 minute, climbing the next, running after that. The PST reflects this need for well-rounded physical capability. You can't just be a great runner or super strong in the gym. You need a balance.
Which is an interesting takeaway for anyone, really. Thinking about our own fitness. Are we too specialized?
It's a great question to ask yourself.
Yeah.
It's easy to just stick to what you like, maybe just running or lifting. The PST model suggests that building a broader fitness base, cardio, strength, core, makes you more resilient, more functionally capable for whatever life throws your way.
Building a more robust human machine.
Kind of, yeah. But, and this is a critical caveat mentioned in the material.
Yes. Even acing the PST doesn't guarantee success in BUDS.
Not by a long shot. It gets you in the door with a good foundation, but BUDS is a different beast. Success there depends massively on mental toughness under extreme prolonged stress, teamwork, adaptability, how you handle injuries. It's a whole other level.
So the PST is necessary, but not sufficient.
Exactly. Elite fitness in that context is this complex mix of physical conditioning, mental resilience, and psychological factors.
Okay, speaking of intense challenges that blend the physical and mental, let's shift to the Murph. This one has become really famous, especially outside the military, thanks to CrossFit.
Oh yeah. Murph is probably the most globally recognized hero WD workout of the day. It's legendary, partly because of the sheer difficulty, but mostly because of the story behind it.
It looks absolutely brutal just reading the description. Can you walk us through the actual workout?
Sure. It starts simple enough with a 1-mile run.
Okay.
Then comes the hard part. You have to complete 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, and 300 air squats.
Wow. That's a lot of reps in any order.
You can break them up however you need to, and most people do partition them. But you have to finish all those reps, and then you finish the whole thing with another 1-mile run.
Run, massive body weight circuit, run again. And isn't there usually a weight vest involved?
Traditionally, yes. To make it even tougher, it's often done wearing a weight vest, typically 20 pounds for men, 14 pounds for women. The goal is just to complete it as fast as possible.
That volume is staggering. But the name, Murph, it comes from a person, a specific, very heavy story.
It does. And understanding that story is key to understanding the workout's significance. It's named in honor of U.S. Navy SEAL Lieutenant Michael P. Murphy.
He was killed in action in Afghanistan.
Yes, during Operation Red Wings in 2005. Before it was called Murph, this workout apparently was one of his favorites, and he called it body armor.
And the reason it was renamed, it relates to his final actions.
Exactly. His team was ambushed, taking heavy fire, and they couldn't get a signal out for help from their cover position. Lieutenant Murphy, understanding the extreme risk, moved out into the open, exposing himself completely to enemy fire so he could get a clear signal to call for backup. He was hit multiple times while making the call, but he completed it. He died from his wounds, but that call was critical and ultimately helped save the life of one of his teammates. It was an act of incredible courage and self-sacrifice.
That puts the workout in a totally different light. Doing Murph isn't just exercise, it's an act of remembrance.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it represents in the Special Forces and CrossFit communities. It's far more than just exercise. It's a ritual.
How so?
Well, first, it's about honoring sacrifice, Lieutenant Murphy's sacrifice, and by extension, the sacrifices of all service members. Doing it, often as a group, particularly on Memorial Day, builds a sense of community and shared respect.
And the physical challenge itself.
That reflects the values, too. The sheer volume demands serious physical endurance, yes, but maybe even more, it demands mental toughness. Pushing through that discomfort, that desire to quit. It's a test of will.
Yeah.
It mirrors that perseverance needed in tough situations.
It connects the physical suffering you're experiencing in the workout to a much greater suffering and sacrifice.
Precisely. You're not just grinding out reps. You're choosing to endure hardship as a way to connect with and honor someone who faced the ultimate hardship. The components themselves, running, body weight strength, relate to operational fitness. But the meaning elevates it.
And it gives civilians a way to connect with that spirit.
I think so, yes. It offers a tangible, physical way to engage with concepts like sacrifice, resilience, pushing your limits, in a way that goes beyond just reading about them.
The feeling after finishing must be pretty intense, more than just workout endorphins.
People often describe it that way. There's the exhaustion, sure, but also often a sense of accomplishment mixed with profound respect, gratitude. Finishing something like Murph can really shift your perception of what you're capable of enduring. It builds confidence.
So the whole hero WOD concept, it's about embedding individual effort within a bigger story?
Yeah, it connects your personal struggle to community memory, shared values. It's performance with purpose.
Okay, so we have the PST, a balanced test of potential, and Murph, an intense benchmark steeped in meaning. Both are incredibly inspiring. But let's be realistic. For the average person listening, just jumping into either of these sounds, well,
Risky.
yeah, intense, maybe even dangerous.
And it absolutely can be. Trying to tackle the PST standards cold, or doing Murph as written without a solid fitness base and proper buildup, that's asking for trouble. Injury is a real risk.
But the principles behind them, the balanced fitness, the mental grit, those seem valuable. So how can someone apply the spirit of these challenges safely?
That's the key question. It's about adaptation and modification. You take the principles, but scale the execution.
Let's break that down. How would you adapt the PST elements? The swim, for instance.
Okay, the swim. Don't aim for 500 yards timed right away unless you're already comfortable. Start shorter. Maybe focus on improving your stroke technique for a fennel. Freestyle or breaststroke are fine for general fitness before worrying about the clock or hitting 500 yards. Build the endurance and efficiency gradually.
Makes sense. What about the push-ups and sit-ups?
Form first, always. Find your baseline. How many good reps can you do now? Then work on increasing that number slowly. If full push-ups are too much, use modifications. Knees on the ground, or do them with your hands elevated on a bench or wall. That reduces the load.
And pull-ups, often a huge sticking point.
Definitely. Most beginners can't do a strict pull-up. That's normal. So you build towards it. Use assisted pull-up machines, resistance bands slung over the bar to help you, or do exercises like lat pull-downs or inverted rows where you lie under a bar and pull your chest towards it. These build the necessary back and bicep strength.
So find stepping stones towards the main goal. And the run.
Same idea. If 1.5 miles seems impossible, start with less. Maybe 1 mile or even half a mile. Use walk-run intervals. Jog for a bit, walk to recover, repeat. Over time, make the jogging parts longer and the walking parts shorter until you can run the full distance.
Okay, that makes the PST seem less like a terrifying test and more like a set of achievable training targets. How about scaling the beast that is Murph?
Murph scaling is crucial for almost everyone. The most important strategy is partitioning. Don't try to do 100 pull-ups straight, then 200 push-ups, then 300 squats. That's brutal.
So break it up?
Yes. The common method is to divide it into rounds. Like, do 20 rounds of 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 squats. You do those 20 mini sets between the 2 runs.
So you're constantly rotating the muscle groups.
Exactly. It prevents burnout in one area.
Uh-huh.
And just like the PST, modify the movements if needed. Jumping pull-ups, ring rows, knee push-ups, incline push-ups, squatting to a box for depth control, all valid options.
And the vest.
Leave the vest off, at least initially. Focus on completing the workout with body weight only and good form. Adding weight comes much later, once you're comfortable with the volume.
And don't worry about the clock at first.
Absolutely not. The first goal, maybe the first several goals, should just be finishing safely with good technique. Speed comes with practice and improved fitness. And hey, there's no shame in doing a half Murph, cutting all the reps in half, or doing it with a partner splitting the reps.
It really sounds like the main takeaway is keep the spirit, the challenge, the consistency, pushing boundaries, but tailor the method to where you are right now.
That's it, exactly. These challenges can be fantastic benchmarks for anyone. They give you concrete goals, ways to track progress. But for most of us, the goal isn't passing a military selection test. It's about the journey, building better health, functional fitness, mental resilience. Think of them as a compass, guiding you to challenge yourself, not the final destination you must reach.
Use them as inspiration, not a rigid standard to judge yourself against.
Precisely. And finding a supportive community, maybe online or locally, that tackles these kinds of adapted challenges can make a huge difference in motivation and providing good advice.
That perspective feels much healthier. Which brings us to a really important point, avoiding the pitfalls of just trying to copy elite athletes or operators. Seeing amazing feats online is motivating, sure, but just mimicking them without the right preparation seems like a recipe for disaster.
It absolutely is. The warnings are pretty stark. Jumping into extremely high-intensity, high-volume workouts without a proper, gradual buildup significantly increases your risk of serious injury.
What kinds of injuries are we talking about?
Often, it's overuse injuries or acute strains. Shoulders, knees, the lower back are particularly vulnerable to sudden increases in load or volume. That sharp pain during exercise. That's often not just soreness. It could be an acute injury signal. And even in structured military training, injuries happen. So imagine the risk without that careful progression.
And we need to remember, the reason Special Forces operators can handle this stuff isn't just raw talent, right? It's the years of training behind it.
Exactly. People performing at that level have spent years, literally years, building up to it. They follow structured, progressive programs, often with expert coaching, nutrition support, recovery protocols. It's a long-term investment, not something you just decide to do one weekend.
Is there a psychological risk, too? Getting too obsessed with the numbers?
For sure. If you get fixated on hitting a specific PST score or matching some elite Murph time you saw online, it can create unhealthy pressure. Constant comparison can kill the enjoyment of training, lead to frustration, maybe even burnout.
It misses the point.
It kind of does. The real value, as suggested by why these tests exist, is about building genuine capability, discipline, mental toughness for real-world demands, not just chasing stats for bragging rights. For civilians, the focus should be on that intrinsic value, improving your health, your resilience for your life.
So admire the dedication, the capability, that's fine. But don't let admiration become, as the material puts it, self-destructive behavior.
That's the perfect distinction. True respect isn't blind imitation. It's learning the underlying principles, the discipline, the commitment, the mental fortitude, and figuring out how to apply those principles safely and constructively to your own goals, your own body, your own life. Recognize your context is different. Copying blindly often leads straight to injury and disappointment.
Adapt, don't just duplicate.
Exactly. And frankly, anyone putting out content showing these kinds of extreme workouts really ought to include clear warnings about the risks and strongly advocate for safe, sensible scaling and adaptation for the general public. So you think about all this, the standards, the sacrifice, the sheer effort involved, maybe reflect on this. Pushing your own perceived limits, even in small, safe, incremental ways, doesn't just build physical strength. It can reveal an inner resilience, a toughness you might not even know you have. Well, it's one small step, one constructive challenge you can introduce into your routine this week.
Welcome to our deep dive. Today, we're looking into rucking. Now, it sounds pretty simple, right? Just walking with some weight. But there's a really deep history here, ancient military roots, and some surprising benefits, both physical and mental.
Exactly. It's fascinating, isn't it? Something so basic, just walking, but turned into this, well, highly effective training method used by elite forces for centuries. It's really more than just strength. It's about building this total readiness.
Okay, let's break it down then. What is it? At its core, it's walking, maybe running sometimes, with a weighted backpack.
That's the essence of it, yeah. But the history piece, it's not some new fitness trend. We're talking millennia. The sources suggest weighted marching goes back as far as the 7th century BC.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, think about soldiers needing to carry weapons, armor, supplies over huge distances. It was fundamental preparation. And that importance hasn't faded. It's still absolutely critical for modern special forces.
So why is it still so vital for those elite units today? What specific need does it fill?
Well, the biggest thing is it simulates their actual job. I mean, when these operators are out on a mission, often in remote places, they carry everything: ammo, water, food, comms gear, medical stuff. It adds up.
A lot of weight, I imagine.
Oh, yeah, substantial. And they have to move with that weight over really difficult terrain, mountains, jungle, desert, places where vehicles just can't go. Rucking is how they train for that sustained movement under load.
You hear about things like the UK SAS long drag, that kind of thing.
Precisely. And that highlights the dual benefit. You're building incredible physical capacity, lower body strength, core stability, serious endurance, cardio fitness. But at the same time, you're forging serious mental toughness, the sheer patience required, pushing through discomfort, even boredom on long marches. Rucking builds that resilience.
Yeah, I've seen it called one of the most basic, but also most comprehensive training forms for units like the Green Berets or Rangers.
And that hits the core idea. It takes walking, something humans just do, and applies progressive overload. You add weight, or you go further or faster, or tackle tougher terrain.
Right. Keep challenging the body.
Exactly. It's a scalable challenge. This controlled stress drives adaptation. It builds a person capable of handling tough physical tasks in unpredictable environments, all while carrying a load. It's foundational.
Okay, let's get into the science behind why it works so well. Beyond just carrying heavy stuff is hard work, what's going on inside the body?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting physiologically. From a cardio perspective, adding that weight just changes the game compared to normal walking. Your heart rate, your oxygen use goes up significantly.
How much more?
The sources suggest maybe a 30–40% higher exercise effect. Some reports even mention calorie burn tripling, depending on, the weight and pace. So it's fantastic for cardiorespiratory endurance, heart health, and yeah, great for weight management because you're burning way more calories.
So it's a serious cardio boost.
Yeah.
But what about the strength side? It's not just cardio, right?
Oh, absolutely not. It's a major strength workout, especially for the lower body and core. Every single step, your quads, hamstrings, glutes, calves, they're all working harder to move you and the tack.
Makes sense.
And crucially, your core, abs, lower back is firing constantly to stabilize that weight, to keep you upright. That core engagement is huge. It builds strength there, improves spinal stability, which, as you know, can really help prevent lower back pain.
And posture, too.
Definitely improves posture. Plus, your traps, your shoulders, they're engaged just holding the pack, so you get some upper body work in there, too.
I also saw something about bone health benefits.
Yes, that's another really important point. It's a weight-bearing exercise. That stress on the bones is actually beneficial. It signals your body to remodel the bone, make it denser over time.
So stronger bones long term.
Exactly. Regular weight-bearing stuff like rucking is known to help increase bone density. It could potentially play a role in preventing things like osteoporosis later on.
So for you listening, it sounds incredibly efficient, like you're getting cardio and strength work done at the same time, almost, without needing a gym membership.
That's a great way to put it. It blends that low-intensity, steady-state cardio LISS with resistance training. The added weight is the resistance. So you get endurance benefits plus functional strength, particularly in those key areas for stability and movement.
And it's accessible, right?
Yeah.
You don't need loads of special equipment to just start.
Not at all. That's a huge plus. A backpack you already have, something heavy inside water bottles, books, sandbags work great initially. It's very accessible. You learn the principles, but adapt it to yourself.
Okay, practicalities. If you're listening and thinking, all right, I want to try this, how do you start safely? The insights seem pretty clear on the steps.
Safety is number one, absolutely. Before anything, preparation. Check with your doctor, especially if you've got any knee or back issues, maybe even a physio. And get decent shoes. Supportive cushioned walking or hiking shoes, non-negotiable.
Right, and the weight. Don't just load up a military Birkin straight away.
Definitely not. Weight, start light, really light, like 5 to 10% of your body weight. So if you're 70 kilos, that's only what, 3.5 to 7 kilos? Yeah. Tiny.
Okay.
And then increase gradually. Maybe add a couple of kilos, like 5 pounds per week. But honestly, listen to your body. That's the main rule. Long term, maybe you work up to a third of your body weight, but going heavier really ramps up injury risk.
And how often when you're just beginning?
Distance and frequency. Start short. Maybe 1 to 3 kilometers, just a mile or two, but maybe only once or twice a week to begin. Again, slow increases, no more than 10% increase in distance or time per week. Give your body time to adapt. Avoid overuse.
Recovery days are important then.
Crucial. 2–3 times a week is plenty, especially starting out. Don't do it on consecutive days.
And posture. Carrying weight must change how you stand and walk.
It's everything. Posture. Keep that back straight, chest open. Engage your core. Just slightly brace your abs a bit. That supports your spine. Look forward. Keep your stride natural. Don't force it.
What about the pack itself?
Make sure it's snug against your back. Use the straps, shoulder, hip belt if you have one, chest strap to distribute the weight. You don't want it all just hanging off your shoulders. Heavy items high up and close to your spine inside the pack. Lighter stuff lower down.
And gear-wise, beyond the shoes. Any old backpack okay to start?
Yeah, pretty much. Gear. A comfy backpack you own is fine. And the weight, like we said, water, sandbags, books. If you really get into it, sure, you might look at special rucking packs or weight plates later, but you don't need them to start.
So the big message is patience.
Right.
Scale it to yourself. Don't try and be a special forces recruit on day one.
Exactly that. Progressivity and individuality. What works for someone else, or what soldiers do in training, is probably way too much for you starting out. Going too hard, too fast, that's how you get hurt. Ankles, knees, back.
Common spots?
Very common. So be honest about your fitness level. Start cautious, pay attention to how you feel, and build up slowly. It's your own journey. Don't compare.
Okay, let's talk pitfalls then.
Yeah.
Those injuries you mentioned, what are the common ones and how do you avoid them based on what we've looked at?
Right. Injuries are the main physical hurdle. Blisters are almost legendary. Prevention is key. Good fitting shoes, moisture wicking socks, maybe 2 thin pairs instead of 1 thick cotton one, keep feet dry. Maybe use tape or Vaseline on known problem spots before you go.
Okay. What about joints? Knees, ankles, back.
Joint pain usually comes from doing too much too soon, weight or distance or bad form. So stick to those gradual increases, maintain good posture, core engaged, wear the right shoes, and actually strengthening your core and legs outside of rucking helps build that support structure.
Right, supporting muscles.
Exactly. Then there's shoulder or back discomfort from the pack itself, friction or pressure. Make sure it fits snugly. Use packs with wide padded straps, wear breathable clothes, maybe add padding or tape where it rubs.
In general overuse stuff like shin splints.
Yeah. Other overuse injuries can happen. Always warm up before you start, cool down and stretch afterwards. Basic exercise principles apply.
Beyond the physical side, though, there's the mental aspect. The sources mention boredom. I mean, it's just walking, right? Not exactly thrilling sometimes.
That's a fair point and important to acknowledge. Rucking is simple, repetitive. Military folks have the mission, the team to keep them going. As a civilian, you need other strategies, and that monotony can actually lead to sloppy form if you zone out too much, which then causes injury.
So how do you combat that? What tips do the sources offer?
Several good ones. Easiest is listening to music or podcasts. Distraction works. Working with friends is great. Makes it social. You chat, time passes. Exploring different routes is huge. Parks, trails, new neighborhoods. Changing scenery keeps it fresh. And apparently, being in green spaces has extra stress-busting benefits too.
Setting goals, maybe?
Definitely. Set concrete goals, reach that tree, finish this loop in X time, gives you a sense of accomplishment. And there's this idea of mindfulness rucking.
Oh, what's that?
Basically, using the walk as meditation, focusing on your breath, the rhythm of your steps, the feel of the pack, the sights and sounds around you, turning it into a grounding, stress-relieving practice instead of just slogging through.
Interesting. But ultimately, it sounds like the absolute #1 rule overriding everything else is just listen to your body.
100%. Pay attention. Sharp pain. Overwhelming fatigue. Stop. Just stop. Don't push through serious pain. If it persists after rest, get it checked out professionally. Remember, the goal for most of us isn't military selection. It's health, fitness, resilience. Breaking yourself doesn't achieve that. Find your sustainable pace. Make it something positive. That's how you get the long-term benefits. You know, when you think about it, this simple act, walking with weight, it's something warriors have done for thousands of years to prepare, physically, mentally, and now you can use that same fundamental principle to build surprising levels of fitness and resilience in your own life. It really shows how sometimes the most powerful methods are built right on top of basic human capabilities, just amplified by discipline and effort.